Hello, and welcome to the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida. Each week, we host about 60 guests in our unique, lush, healthful environment. We teach the Living Foods lifestyle, which focuses on a diet of organic, living, raw foods such as sprouts, green juices, vegetables, sea vegetables, and soaked and sprouted grains, nuts, and seeds. We employ wheatgrass juice, a powerful cleansing and healing agent that expedites the healing process remarkably well. Hippocrates is not only a health center, it is also a health school, showing how live foods and increased oxygen improve on the state of your health. Tests have proven that enzymes and oxygen nourishment help the body to correct any imbalances or weaknesses that encourage or allow illness. By supplying your system with oxygen and enzymes, we help you rebuild your health. The Institute was started in 1955 by Dr. Anne Wigmore, who healed herself of cancer and shared her wisdom with people who wished to heal naturally. In addition to the Living Foods diet, we focus on all the aspects of a healthy lifestyle. We analyze your blood, and a personalized program will be developed for you. Many problems can be seen through the blood screening process, and specially trained personnel are here at all times to make sure that proper procedures for your health are followed. We also teach you the importance of exercise and rest, the need to heal emotional wounds. Thousands of people have healed themselves by giving their bodies the nutrition needed by every cell and eliminating the toxins that create disease. We know that our immune systems have been designed impeccably. It's just that no one gave us an owner's manual for the proper care and feeding of our amazing human bodies. In this series of programs, you will learn about the inner workings of the body, the importance of detoxing and eliminating, how to best use supplements, how to live practically and healthfully with the combination of the foods we eat. We will answer scores of questions our guests ask about the Living Foods lifestyle. We invite you to join us in person for the 3-week Life Change program we offer at Hippocrates Health Institute. You can reach us at 800-842-2125, also at 561-471-8876, or on the web at www.hippocratesinstitute.org. Welcome to the Hippocrates Lecture on Fasting on Liquid Nourishment with Brian Clement. In this program, Brian discusses the benefits of juice fasting over water fasting. He'll explain how to care for ourselves on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. Brian shows us how to create a healthy balance of energy in all our levels of being and the role that fasting plays. Now, let's join Brian Clement for the 5th lecture of the Hippocrates Health Series, Fasting on Liquid Nourishment.
Fasting is an important part of anyone's health program. It seems that we're constantly considering the nutritional value of food and how we're putting things into our bodies. But how often do we consider the rest from food? Every great study has shown us that people who live longer lives, healthier lives, eat small amounts of high-quality food. Also, we've come in the 20th century from an ideology that long fasts are the best for us. The 21st century, we'd like to change the page on that and to show you how it's much more significant to consistently, one time a week, do a fast. The other thing we'd like to distinguish is the difference between water fasting and juice fasting. Historically, people believe the only true fast is a water fast. I found out that well over 90% of the populations worldwide are malnourished, and that here in Western countries with great affluence, we often have more malnourishment than do third world countries per capita. One would say, how is that possible? Well, not everyone in the third world country is starving. And those people that are not are eating healthy, whole food diets. And so if one is fasting and they already are having malnourishment, it's a problem. So water fasting is not something we consider viable for almost anyone in the 21st century. We're considering juice fasting as being the best for you. Now, when we say juice fasting here at Hippocrates, it's obviously not fruit juice, the ones that you'd prefer having. It's green juice. And those green juices made out of the best organic green vegetables and sprouts. Why? They provide the most nutrition, the most balance. They also help the blood sugar to regulate. The similarities between water fasting and juice fasting end after two. Both rest the body, both clean the body, and then further, the juice fasting with green juice provides the body with oxygen. Why is that significant? Well, quite simply, is that oxygen helps to retard and to eliminate all disorders, all microbial diseases in the human body, and mutagens. Next, you're going to get nutrition. Why is that a problem when you're not getting nutrition? Quite simply, is because blood sugar going high to low, make people feel very insecure. And so in most cases, people cannot resist eating during a fast period. They're really not starving. I often hear people tell me they're starving. I said, no, it's going to take weeks or months for that to happen. You're just feeling an up and down of the blood sugar and pancreatic disorder. So when you put the juices in that are made of sprouts with all this complete protein in it, it helps to regulate the blood sugar, allowing you to feel much more secure and stable during a fast day. And lastly are the enzymes. Now the enzymes are very, very important, considering that this is the way that the body contracts electric. You may note that in cleaning products that are at industrial levels, that they're enriched with enzymes, because enzymes are the catalyst of all life. They also will create life within your cells and your body. So we think green juice fast is a way to go. We also think that 1 day a week is far better than longer fast in most cases. If you look at the numbers, it's quite interesting. If you fast 1 day a week consistently on the same day, in 1 year you will have fasted 52 days. In 7 years you will have fasted 364 days with 1 day of rest. So on the day of the 7th year you will have fasted for 1 year. Now why is that significant? Because the human body takes 7 years to regenerate. There are 7 days in the week. And if you're an agricultural scientist, you'll also know that you never plant on that soil the 7th year the same crop. You'll irreparably harm it. So the earth as a human body require 1 out of 7 rest. That's why there was a Sabbath once a week, where historically, theologically, we've been taught to take a rest, to put it aside. We've reduced it to just spiritual, and in some cases, emotional days of healing. But it was also meant to be a physical day of healing. And traditionally, all people fasted 1 day a week under theological science. Now, when we start to look at this, the core of fasting comes right back to the beginning of organized humanity. And if you're not fasting and taking time out from consuming food, you're not ever going to be nearly as healthy as you possibly can be. We're going to take fasting to the next level now. When you talk about fasting, we can't overlook the fact that it plays major role in the way that you are evolving as a human being. All people are created equal. I don't care if we're a 100-year-old person from China or if we're an 18-year-old girl from New York City. We have 3 basic energy areas. The first being here, the physical. The second being here, the emotional. And the third here being the mental and spiritual. Each one of these categories have hundreds of thousands of subcategories. And that sounds very large and impressive till you realize that we really ought to have millions of subcategories. Well, if we should, why don't we? Quite simply, it's a lack of consciousness. And I use consciousness in a more concrete terminology than in a New Age fashion. What consciousness is a capacity we have to know, understand, and to experience. And let me tell you, all of us listening today have very little ability to know, understand, and to move forward as humans. It's estimated through the research with magnetic resonant imagery, MRIs, that the average person uses 3 to 4% of our brain. They guess that people like Einstein may have used 10% of his brain. Can you imagine if all of us thought like Einstein, how far humanity would have moved forward? Could you imagine if we had 20% or 30% of our brain used? We may not need a Hippocrates Health Institute, and you may not be sitting home tonight listening to this tape, because you would have learned how to live as a young child through your parents and through your educational systems. But since we don't have that, here we sit today using 3 or 4% of our consciousness and brain. With that, we're going to put a handle on all of these areas. Under the physical, there are 3 basic subcategories. The first part is the sexual part. And that, of course, has a little bit to do with romance. But after the romance, you end up with a boy or a girl, a male or a female. And so that's what the sexual part really is more about, concretely male or female. The second part is food. And there are 6 subcategories of food. In priority, 1 and 2 are always placed in those positions. The number 1 food the human body requires is oxygen. Without it, within 6 to 7 minutes, we perish. The number 2 in priority is water. Within a matter of just a few days, we perish without the use of water, or consumption of water. The next 4 are literally equal, but most listeners will have a difficult time understanding how they are equal. The next one is food itself. Those things that we consume, such as juices, and those things that we consume even of living food that we chew and swallow. They're the parts, the elemental parts that keep the human tissue healthy and strong, allow us to build further human tissue, allow us to flourish, allow our immune cells to function. Very, very pivotal. The second in this list of 4 that are is exercise. Equal to food is exercise. I'll restate to you that anyone who is on a 100% living food diet and eating well, eating correctly, the way we prescribe, will be thin. When I talk to people who tell me they've been on living food diets for 1 or 2 years and they have not achieved being thin, they are fibbing. It's that simple. But we don't want to be too thin. So not to be too thin, we must exercise. Now, thank God there's a God of exercise. His name is Dr. Kenneth Cooper. What we are to diet internationally, Kenneth Cooper is to exercise. He was a gentleman that created the word aerobics. Aerobics, meaning getting the heart rate going and circulatory system going, is required by all human beings, as long as we're alive, to get our heart rate up 5 times a week at minimum levels for 30 minutes. So we must pound our heart at the level that we should have at what age we are for at least 30 minutes. So at minimum time periods, it will require 35 minutes, 5 days a week to do aerobic exercise. We'd much prefer people doing 1 hour of aerobic exercise, at least 5, if not 6 days a week. Because the more you do aerobic exercise, the more elimination you'll have from the body. The more endorphin activity you'll have activated from the brain that makes you feel calm and at peace, and it reduces depression. So there's lots of reasons to exercise aerobically. The second one is weightlifting, resistant exercise. All of us are required to gain and to develop muscle 3 days a week on an average of 1 to 1.5 hours of weightlifting. Now, thank goodness today there's everything from free weights, which one ought not to start with, to machines, which would be better for a beginner to start with, to Pilates, which elongate and strengthen muscles, to Hatha Yoga, which strengthen muscle, to Lottie Burke or Kalinetics, which strengthen muscle. We must all strengthen muscle because the only weight we want on the body is muscle weight. The more muscle weight you have, the more immune cells you have. The more immune cells you have, the healthier you are, the longer you live, and the less ill you'll become. It's that simple. I can't say how important it is with osteoporosis. There's no words I can use to point out how important it is, weightlifting, to ward off and to eliminate osteoporosis. I've worked with 7,500 to 8,000 women in my life with osteoporosis, and never once has one recovered who was not willing to lift weights. So I would say that osteoporotic conditions and many arthritic conditions are a weightlifting deficiency, not a calcium deficiency. We have found in our studies of blood that it's very few women that have low calcium, but almost no women are lifting weights on a regular basis. Now, this has an awful lot to do with age. Women who are maturing were taught as young ladies that it wasn't ladylike to lift weight, that it was a male thing. Well, let's get over that. It's the 21st century. Let me also say to you that everyone that you've ever admired, the actors, actresses, athletes, beauty queens, or beauty kings, all are weightlifters. Nobody has a body that looks that way without lifting weights. And you should do it until the day you pass. And I hope that's 150 years old. So weightlifting and aerobic exercise is equally important to living foods and the consumption of living food. Next to exercise is rest, powerfully important food for the body. With all the people I've worked with and watched die, it's very few, we estimate less than 5%, who die from disease. Most people die from two factors. One is sleep deprivation, lack of sleep, and the second is dehydration. And if you've ever been with somebody who are close to death, you see that they stop drinking fluids and they stop sleeping. And those two are fatal. Fatal. Sleep deprivation is a plague internationally. It's estimated that when we're younger, 70s and younger, that the average person needs 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep a night. As we mature and our metabolism slows down, if at 50 you needed 8 hours of sleep, it would not be uncommon that at 80 you could literally get away with 6.5 hours of sleep. But younger people below 80 literally, generally need 8 to 8.5 hours. As we know, that average means some need 7, some need 9. Now with that said, I had a theory that I taught for years, and thank goodness about 15 years ago the University of Buffalo confirmed I was right. Thank goodness, University of Buffalo. I always thought when you lost sleep and you deprived yourself, it was cumulative. It added up. And they showed us that that was true. Let's imagine that you were one that requires 8 hours of sleep a night, but you only sleep 7 hours. Now, look at that times 365 days. You're times 1. You've lacked 1 hour of sleep. At the end of 1 year, you literally would have lost 365 hours of your life. Now, when I'm speaking to people who lack sleep, they're not telling me that they're losing 1 hour of sleep. They're telling me they're sleeping 3 hours and sleeping 4 hours. Now start to add their numbers up. 4 hours a night, lack of sleep, times 365. The most recent study in the last year from the University of Chicago was earth-shaking. They actually took youngsters, 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old athletes, and they only allowed them to sleep 4 hours of night, creating 4 hours of sleep deprivation. At the end of 7 days, 4 hours of sleep deprivation, after 7 days, 28 hours, their biological bodies and minds were working like the average 75-year-old person. Now think of what I've just said. Their mental acuity, their physical ability, their stamina, their equilibrium, their vocabulary, everything now had reduced over 50 years just by losing 4 hours of sleep a night. One more aspect I'd like to speak about before moving on is the fact that when we lose sleep, we're partly dysfunctional. Forget the fact we're losing life. I know on and off, I may stay up too late reading, and I'll come in to do a talk or a lecture somewhere in the world, and I end up not being nearly as good as I would be if I had slept that 8 hours a night. So we all must think about this as important as food itself, and one of the most important foods. And the last one is sunshine. And man, has that gotten a bad rap in recent years. You know, when I was a boy, and a lot of the listeners out there today sitting at home were young, we were told the sun was the greatest thing. And it is the greatest thing. If you looked at the number-1 booster, the builder of your immune system, it is the sun. That's why we like to sit in the sun and why we feel so well after sunbathing. But I may say to you, if I knew when I was 20 years old what I know now in my 50s, that the sun is the #1 cause of wrinkles, I may not have sat in the sun as much as I did. So what I will blame the sun for is causing wrinkles. But is it the ozone layer? And is it the UV rays that are causing higher incidence of cancer in Anglo-Saxon populations, Middle Eastern population? And the answer is absolutely no. Because if we go to primitive cultures worldwide, where people are in the sun all day long, every day, we're finding that there's no higher incidence of skin cancer and other forms of cancer. And they are living on the same planet. What is a culprit? Very simple. Let's go back. If the number one booster of your immune system happens to be the sun, when it boosts the immune system, those wonderful cells like the T cells and the leukocytes, the white blood cells, they go into action and they start pushing out of your body the poisons and the chemicals, the pesticides, the fungicides, the plastics you've just taken into your lungs through breathing. And where do they push them out of? Your skin. Now we find the sun is beating down with its UV rays, hitting fats and chemicals, and it's a lethal mixture to create mutagens in the cell. This is where skin cancer is coming from. If you look at the Anglo-Saxon population of 70-year-old residents of Queensland, Australia, 80% of them have contracted at 70 years old some form of skin cancer. Think about that. If you take the same 70-year-old population in Africa or South American Indians, you'll find that they have no higher incidence of skin cancer than they did 25 or 50 years ago. Interesting, isn't it? Our lifestyle is causing the cancer. Yes, we've created problems with widening the gap and creating UV rays, but geologists have shown us that over the Earth's history, that every 150 to 200 years there's been a natural occurring opening of the ozone layer. And so maybe for some reason that man has yet to discover, we need those UV rays, and that hopefully it will close once again soon. So let's go through the foods under the physical. The first food is oxygen. The second food is water. The third food is food, the foods we drink, like juices, and the foods we chew and swallow, like the living foods. The next is exercise. Both aerobic exercise, feeding the cardiovascular system, circulatory system, and cells of the body, and weightlifting, weight-bearing, or resistant exercise, which build the bone structure of the body, the immune system, and emotional stability. Because you're going to look better when you look in the mirror. And next is rest. Equally important to exercise. We must rest. And last, the sun. When should we go in the sun? Because even the youngsters listening today will end up with wrinkles inevitably. Early in the morning before 9 o'clock, and late in the day, in the summertime, 4 o'clock or after, or in the wintertime, 2:30, 3 o'clock or after. Now, those of us that live in the north must wrap ourselves up with natural fiber clothes. You must have things like wool and cottons and silks, and even coats, outer garments are made with this. Bundle yourself out, put nice warm socks on, and go out for walks. Make sure that you're embracing your environment. How many of you know that the internal environment, our home environments, are generally 7 to 8 times more polluted than the exterior environments on the worst days of the year in major cities? How many of you knew that? So get out and walk and enjoy yourself. Number 1 under the physical is sex, boy, girl, man, woman. Second one is food, those things we feed the body. The last one, everyone always incorrectly places under the emotional category. What do you think that would be? Fear, hostility, anger, and hatred. Why would we ever put that under the physical? Well, quite simply, I want to show you how physical fear is. Ha! What just happened to people in this room now? Everyone jolted. Your neurological system jolted. Now, all of us literally are sitting at this level or this level or this level our whole life. We're sitting ready to be hit by the next event, the next activity, the next shock. And so with that said, when people come into our office and they first arrive here at Hippocrates, many times before they utter a word, we can determine what disease or disorder they have. Because over the years, we've actually discovered that diseases have personalities, and that certain kinds of characteristics in personalities acquire certain forms of diseases. Now, is that something hokey? No, that's something quite scientific. And I can show you, and you can even show yourself, and you can even observe that this is a common thing. With that said, fear, hostility, anger and hatred literally help to create or deter, or if it's positive and eliminating these factors, increase the strength of the human body. So physical happens to be in that category. The emotions are another interesting area, a little bit more interesting than the physical. The emotions are your understanding of who? Anyone know? Of course. Your understanding of self and others. Well, any wise person knows that we don't completely understand ourselves. Whenever somebody tells me they completely understand themselves, I know that they're completely wacky. But they probably have that belief system because the first people they met that were a little dishonest to them, in a loving way hopefully, were their parents. Their parents told them when they were young babies, probably in a bassinet or crawling, that someday you're going to reach this golden thing that we call adulthood. Now most of us listening here today, adulthood was 21. And I remember when I was 20, I was a little bit confused, but I kept thinking it doesn't matter because in 12 months, I'm going to be a man. And it will all be figured. I got to 21, I was just as confused as 20. They said, don't worry, wait till you settle down. You follow? So most of us had the same experience. Now you settle down, whatever that means, you have your mate there, you have your house, you have your dog, your cat, your fish, and you're just as confused many times as when you were 20. They said, wait till you're 40. Wait, what is it going to be? Wait till you're 896? You know, that's the question. The real thing that your parents should have told you when you were a youngster is not to rush to some plateau where everything is going to be okay, but all there is in life is change. And this is a fact. All there is in life is change. And those people who learn how to make change work the best are the happiest and most successful. And that's a fact. So don't ever forget that. Learn to be a lover of change. So we don't understand ourselves. And how the heck do we understand others? Well, this is why divorce is rampant. This is why relationships in general are estranged. This is why war, prejudice is on an upswing. Because if one doesn't understand themselves, they blame others for that. And so we must all get ourselves to the place to understand that our only obligation here on this earth is to better understand ourselves. And if we do that with efficiency and we do it with integrity, our lives will transform. And we'll start to become contributory members of the human race rather than another weight, another deterrent, and another difficulty. So this is a very important area, the emotional stability, your understanding of yourself, which then will lead you to better understanding others. To me, the most interesting is up here at the top, the mental and spiritual area. The mental and spiritual area is also your understanding. What do you think that's your understanding of? That's your understanding of the universe. Big word. But most importantly, and your part in it. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, quite simply, we have all these ideas about the universe, and I'd like to clarify where I'm discussing the universe and what I mean by that. I believe the universe is personal. If you took the 6 and so many billions of people that are on this planet today and brought them here to this room right now as we speak, into your homes as you're listening, you could literally ask that person to bring to this very moment all things that they've ever learned, all things that they've ever understood, all things that they've ever experienced, everything they've ever done in their life, bring it to this very moment. And then to take those thoughts as far as you possibly can. That's your current universe. And this is why the universe is personal. So what the universe is everything you've ever learned, understood, or experienced brought to one moment, and those thoughts as far as you possibly can bring them, that's your current universe. Very understandable. Now, let me show you how solid the universe is and how fragile the universe is. Let's picture that the universe is like standing on top of an accordion. You ever watch accordion players? Well, if they're playing romantic songs, an accordion player literally would have you standing on top and you'd be very secure, very solid up there. Now let's imagine that he starts or she starts to play a festive song. All at once, the accordion is no longer an easy place to stand. Isn't that how life is? Your life has been going smooth for a very long period of time. One day you wake up, my God, you're falling off the side of life. So what happened? Because the accordion player or life or the universe, your universe, literally is shaking you up. And we need to be shaken up. Go back a minute. All there is in life is change. And those of us who learn how to do it best are the most happy and successful. And all we want is happiness. That's what we're striving for, love and happiness. Now, this really gives you an ability to see the larger picture. If a person understands the whole picture, how do you fit into it? What am I going to do 25 years from now? When I'm working with a person who's been told they have 6 months to live, my first issue with them is not how to grow a sprout. My first issue with them is getting them to know that they will be alive, desire that they'll be alive 20 years or 25 years from now. They will see themselves with their wife or their husband or their grandchild or their child. They will see themselves doing what they love. They will see themselves living a passionate life. And if people cannot get that in their head, I don't care what you feed them. They will not live a good life, and they will not survive. That's why many people have come here with catastrophic illness, unthinkable illness, and recovered. And others have come here with insignificant problems and dispensed their life because they did not have a vision for themselves. So the emotional part of a person is so significant. We're now starting to get into this in this fasting class. Now, with that said, in the ideal world, going back to the beginning of humanity, all of us should have been balanced individuals. We should have been 1/3 physical, 1/3 emotional, and 1/3 mental and spiritual. We would have been quite stable. Whatever happened to us wouldn't have shaken us. Our feathers wouldn't have been ruffled. We could have dealt with things in a very understandable, compassionate, and calm way. But is that what has happened now in human experience? And the answer is no, because we're totally out of balance. Now, when I began teaching this 2.5 decades ago, I had no way to substantiate it, but I found a gentleman who collects data for major industry. And what he collects worldwide is how you and I spend our time, 24 hours a day. Now, why do you think major industry wants that? Quite simply, because they want to know what to sell you and how to sell it to you. When do you sleep? What do you wear? What cars do you like? On and on it goes. What foods do you eat? And this is done consistently every day worldwide. Now, I knew he was a very nice man, and he felt bad even though he made large sums of money. So I said, I'm actually going to help you feel better once every 2 years if you just spend an hour with me. And all I do is once every couple of years, and very soon in the next couple of months it will be done again, I pick up the phone and call, and I say, will you please give me the current data on how we worldwide are spending our time, men and women are spending our time, out of 100% in each of these areas. And this is really shocking when you think about it. For over the last 20 years, literally since the beginning of the time I've worked with this gentleman, we found out that almost all human energy is in sex, food, and hatred. When you see that, you can actually picture an anchor down at the bottom of the physical, holding down all the energy, holding all your energy right down here at the bottom. You're supposed to have 33%. You actually have 91% of your energy here. You almost have 60% more than you need. This is why you see people literally walking around like this. They're dragging the invisible anchor behind them. Your mind works down here more than it works up here. How do marketers attach you to their product? Sex. Any good advertiser is going to tell you, you don't sell a product, you sell sex. Then people will buy the product. You're not an addict? What are you whining about? Why are you worrying when you're listening to this tape about what you're going to eat and the taste of your food? Because you're addicts to food. You're an expert in food. You could tell me what food you ate in a restaurant 40 years ago and tell me how to get there. You can't tell me how to get home half the time, but you can get to that restaurant. And hatred, fear, anxiety, my God, we're experts in that. If you didn't learn it at home, you had a formal class in school called history. That's what they taught there. What we did to one another throughout human history on this earth. So we are experts. We're comfortable in the physical. Boy, are we comfortable there. Why? Because we spend all our time there hiding. Every time we want to look at the emotions, it's always down here. It's supposed to have 33%, 8%. This is why relationships don't work. This is why we don't understand ourselves, because all our energy is on eating and negativity. It's not on how am I going to improve myself? What can I do to get to a better place? How can I become happy? That's not the question we're asking. The question I used to ask is, when can I eat? And when can I eat? And when can I eat? And when can I kiss? They were the big questions. Now here's the most amazing one. Over the last 18 years, it has never gone above 1%. We've literally had to give it 1% to be gracious. It's been 0.8 or 0.9. Thank goodness at this time of filming, it's at 0.9, so closer to 1%. When you hear the word airhead, now you can picture this from here on in. We literally have less than 1% of our energy in the mental and spiritual. Now people are saying, wait a minute, there's a renaissance back to God. No, there's major fear internationally, and people are going back to organized theology. There is a renaissance of spirituality when people start to accept, love, and respect one another on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis. That will be a renaissance of spirituality. When we cherish life so much that everything works, that's when there's a renaissance of spirituality. How interesting it is that we've reduced mental ability, and we've actually said that the people who are the best learners are the smartest people. If you look through human history, that really is not the case. Usually it's the people that denounce what they're being taught that lead us forward. And so it's not the best learners. That's like a trained seal. It's the people who need to create new ideologies, new ways of thinking. That's really what all of us are about in the future. Now with that said, when you look at this whole picture, it brings us right back to the subject this class is about, fasting. Right back there. Your real question at this moment should be, well, how do we change this? Fasting's a key. Theologically, if you go back as an example to Muhammad or to Moses or to Christ, or even people in recent years, recent decades, like Mahatma Gandhi, like Martin King, what did all of those people tell us to do when we wanted to reach God, when we wanted to reach the universe, the higher person? They told us to do two things, to fast and to pray. Now, we'll put my scientist hat on and show you how fasting plays a major role in doing so. Go back to the anchor. Picture your body being like a large, wonderful ship in the middle of a rocking sea, but it has this giant anchor holding it down so that you're not going anywhere. Boy, a lot of listeners today feel exactly like that, sitting there. You feel like you have a life, but you're not going anywhere with the life. Well, by fasting, it changes the physics. The laws of physics prevail here, where the anchor now comes up. And all of the energy that's been contained and held in that small egg that we call the physical person, the sexuality, the food, the way we manipulate food to hold the energies down, the anger, the fear, all that stuff you feel down in your gut and your stomach, cracks that egg, because now the anchor's up, your body, their ship, is now moving forward, the egg cracks, and look at the way energy always moves. It moves in this direction, and this direction is who? Self. So now we're at a point where a lot of you may understand better why you have such resistance on getting on a living food diet. I assure you that a living food diet and fasting on living juices is a most expedient and effective way to change your physical, emotional, and psychological person. Because rapidly, without any hesitation, it will break the eggs open and move the energy ever forward, so that you will now start to understand why you're here and how you fit in, what life is about. You'll now better understand about yourself so that you can relate with others. And yes, you will better have the body function, because now the arteries and the electromagnetic energy fields and the cells and the immune system, everything is now going to function better because all of the muck is out. Living food is not only going to protect you from disease and bring back your youth, but I assure you it's going to change your consciousness. In spite of us, ourself, it will change our consciousness. Now with that said, we're going to now look at other aspects of what happens in fasting. When we're fasting, the major issue is not how much am I going to eat when I'm done. The major issue is how much am I gaining during the fast? How many hours should one fast? Well, at first, and it generally takes for the average person who's not emotionally distraught, 2 to 3 months to get to a place of security, where one starts to look forward to the day of fasting. I know in my life now, it's well over 30 years, it's like brushing my teeth. Every once in a while, I'll ask my wife, did I fast last week? And I have only missed 2 weeks in all of these years. Why? Because once you get on this program of fasting once a week, your body looks forward to it. It gives you more time in that day so that you're not having to sit down and eat and worry about preparation of food. And it gives you all the energy that normally goes into digestion of food into working on one's emotional self and spiritual person. It doesn't make you an exceptional person. It gives you energy so that you can become a person. It's that simple. Now, with that said, we would like somebody to start fasting, for instance, after dinner on any given night. Let's just select as an example for you Friday night. Let's imagine that at 6 p.m. you're finished eating your meal, your dinner, on a Friday night. We would really like you to now fast from that time through the next day, Saturday, and not eat again until noon or around noon on Sunday. So it's not a traditional 24-hour fast, or many of us know religious fast, where we're literally fasting from the morning until dusk at night. This is one that literally permits you to fast from one evening through the following day until the midday of the next. And this gives a wonderful, wonderful cleansing and emotional stabilizing effect to every person who does it. There's no question that this is the fastest way to change one's psyche and physical body, physical state. Are there exceptions? Are there people who ought not to fast? And the answer is yes. If you give us people with severe diabetes or low blood sugar, you give me emaciated people who are weakened by viral diseases or cancers, these people are not good candidates to fast. In cases such as this, we generally put them on mono diets. Mono diets may consist of 100% organic green leafy vegetables and green leafy sprouts. So we say any green leafy vegetable or sprout can be consumed during that day in whatever amount you wish within common sense terms. And that gives a mono effect. So that person's metabolism will slow down since they are digesting some food, so the low blood sugar person or emaciated person won't have so much metabolism activity that it's going to further weaken them. So everyone can do some form of fasting, even in cases such as this. As they rebuild their body, as they recover, as they become very stable, then we can start to place them on liquid diets. And let's also name the fast a better name than fasting. Here at Hippocrates, we call it Liquid Nourishment Day. There's no difference on a fasting day, frankly, than there is on a day you go and collect your food normally. The difference, only one factor, there's only one factor that it's a difference, and that's where you take that food and go to a juicer and juice it and drink it, rather than eat it in its solid positioning, the way that we normally do. So when you start to look at this, it's a very easy way to go about life. It's one that I assure you after the first 2 or 3 months you're going to look forward to. Everyone who has the emotionality that surrounds food, the 3 S's as we speak about, social, sensual, and sexual, this will start to be dismissed and diminished dramatically. And I'll tell you, the health-giving factors that you're going to gain from this are so many, I can't even discuss them on the tape today. The other thing that we see with fasting is that people start to have faster thought patterns occur, because we have juices which are able to go through the brain barrier and stabilize the hormonal effects of the brain. The proteins, the amino acids, literally can help people who have dyslexic conditions, attention deficit conditions, early stage senility, which we today call Alzheimer's disease. And there's been studies that confirm these types of things, providing that we're consuming the right juices. The contrary will happen if one's taking a juice with a lot of fructose or a lot of sugar in it, or sugar itself. It will actually scatter the brain, weaken the hormones, advance attention deficit, and senility, Alzheimer's disease. So it's really an amazing way to manipulate the mind and the body in a positive way. We usually manipulate them in negative ways. The other thing I may say to you about fasting, it will give you an opportunity to do more in your life than just sit down in front of a plate. I know that when I'm with my friends and family members during a fast, that we have a lot more jovial activity going on. You know, we seem all, even the people here who are conscious health seekers, to be focusing in on our plate more than we are the individual at the other end of the table. So I'm a big fan of not breaking all traditions. We must have some things that are familiar to us. And so let's still sit at the table and at least once a week sit at the table and fast. Now what we'd like to do is open up and ask any questions there may be specific to fasting.
Yeah, when embarking on this green juice fast or liquid nourishment diet, is an enema recommended, or if it is, can you maybe explain the mechanics of an enema?
That's a very good question. There's lots of controversy that surrounds the use of enemas. And this is an area that conventional doctors and I agree on. That the problem with enemas and colonics is that they can throw out the electrolytes, the minerals that are in your gastrointestinal tract. But here at Hippocrates, when we tell people to take enemas, and during most people's stay, it's 1 in the morning and 1 at night for the whole program, we always follow them up with implants. And implants, as you know, are made from wheatgrass, where we take about 4 ounces of wheatgrass juice after the enema, and after we evacuate the waste the enema has helped to do, we implant those 4 ounces and hold it for 15 to 30 minutes. And what it does is reintroduce minerals and electrolytes to the system. And what's quite interesting is that when guests arrive here, we do blood profiling at the beginning and the end of their stay. And in every case, when they've abided by the rules we've given them and the advice we have, their electrolytes improve, so they stabilize. So with that said, yes, it's a very wise thing to do an enema the day or the morning after the fast. So as an example, if you were to fast one day, the very next morning you get up, it would be great to do an enema, or if you have the ability in a colonic occasionally, and then always follow it up immediately with an implant. You're going to get all of the waste out of the body and help the body where those little last debris that it was having a difficult time pushing out are still stuck there. Okay, any other questions on this?
This is a funny question relating to the same implant. You're saying to hold it 15, 20 minutes. I mean, I've been here almost a week, and I hardly could hold it more than 2 minutes.
Okay, very, very good question. This is something that is often experienced by implant takers. Now, your colon has something that's called peristaltic action. Now, this is a little interesting scientific course we're going to give here. This shows you that the body often, and the organs of the body, work independently of the human mind. It's quite interesting. The mind is saying, okay, let's hold it in this case where you know you should be holding it 15, 20, 30 minutes, but the peristaltic action of the colon, which really literally has a mind of its own, all of those millions and millions of cells that now we call the tissue of the large intestine, are literally saying, no, I've got to move around because something's heavy in here. And that's how we evacuate generally. When one is going to have a bowel movement, it's the heaviness and that peristaltic action that's like a wave moving from one side to the other that wants to push it out. Now, don't worry about it. We did a study when still in Boston a number of years ago where we showed that even after just a few seconds, through the capillaries of the large intestine, you're starting to get some nutrients to go into the cells itself. Ideally, it's better to take it in for a longer period of time, but you're going to get some benefit and probably have more than adequate amounts of electrolytes just by putting it in, holding it for a short time, and it coming out. The other thing I may say is that as you become more experienced with this, more comfortable, because enemas are not something that most of us are comfortable with. It's not something that we generally did as we were growing up in recent generations. Your parents' generation probably did, and their parents' generation did. So as you become more relaxed, more comfortable, the results will be better. And even I, at times, have that same peristaltic action occur. The next question on fasting.
Brian, I wanted to know if you were aware of any studies that showed that fasting actually reduce the toxic load in an individual? In other words, looking at the levels of various toxins before and after a fast.
Yes, there actually have been fairly recent studies, the updated ones. The Germans, the Swedes, the Danes, the French, and the English have conducted studies over the decades in the past, really starting in the 19th century, the mid-19th century. But there's a young physician out of Wisconsin who has done a brilliant book on detoxification and brings us up to speed on what we're finding. And they're literally looking at organs of the body, finding through frequency photography the weight of the organ of the body, and then showing that there's a reduction of the weight of the organ of the body after fasting, much more so than almost any other aspect of healthy living. Of course, eating a living food diet where 75 to 85% of your diet generally is water is certainly a great way to detoxify the body constantly at the same moment you're nourishing it, with the metabolism being stabilized since you're digesting food during that period of time. So the combination of an occasional fast once a week and constant use of living food is phenomenally good for detoxification. Let me also say that the word detoxification has literally been beaten into the ground, overused and abused. A lot of holistic type, alternative type people blame everything on detoxification, and it's not that simple. Yesterday I was on the phone with a lady who literally has a serious disease and does not want to face up to it. And I've been begging her to get diagnostic work from competent physicians. And she literally said, well, I've been reading and reading and reading for the last 10 years, and every book I read says every disease is toxins. Well, it's not quite that easy, and it's not that true. There are microbes, there are viruses that cause diseases, and lots of chemicals that cause disease. And yes, toxins can contribute to that disease growing and developing, and even in some cases create fungal or yeast diseases or create environments for disease. But no, toxins alone are not contributory towards disease. So we have to also watch the word toxins. Yes. Okay, anyone else?
I wanted to ask the question about like, what's it called, Alzheimer's or dementia. Have you experienced some of these people like this, and then they stayed here, and what was their results?
Yeah, you have to understand that with the mind, that there's variation on the effect diet has. I can say in all cases, diet contributes to healthier brain function. There's no question. In a percentage of cases, diet alone helps to alter the brain chemistry so that they stabilize their difficulties. They no longer have the psychiatric problems that they had at one point. But there's a percentage of people that you need much more than just a healthy diet. Healthy diet should be a basis. And this is where modern medicine, for many, many generations, failed utterly, and they have now created psychopathic drugs that do work. Now, am I a fan of it? No, but if you have a severe bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, thank God that we temporarily can use the psychopathic drugs until we can stabilize people with herbal medicines, homeopathic medicines, healthy diets, and other, talk therapies. And in almost all cases, you can wane people from that. But I would probably tell you that the use of drugs is probably necessary in about 20% of the cases, even after all that I just said to you. So the combination of. We have to also grow to the maturity to realize that there are always reasons for everything that's available. And the problem with modern medicine has not been modern medicine's utterly wrong and bad constantly. It's the overuse and the misuse of modern medicine. First by the patient and second by the profession. It's that simple. If we can alter that by using that only in times of crises or only at times of necessity, and let lifestyle be that heals us and develops us and evolves us, our whole world is going to turn around instantaneously at that point. And so yes, this can certainly help in every case with psychiatric disorders. But is it corrective in all? And the answer is no. Yes?
My question follows up on that one. If a person is taking some of these drugs, is it all right for them to fast? And would they continue the drug while they're fasting? Well,
let me say to you that this was something I neglected to say when we were talking about fasting. If anyone is taking a very strong medication, like a severe amount of psychopathic drugs, the answer is no, that you ought not to be fasting. you should be going on mono or can be going on mono diets, but not fasting. Because the instability that that may cause in most cases, not all cases, but most cases, would be troublesome. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want to create an instability in people. But mono diets are certainly fine in almost every case. Okay, the next question on fasting, yes?
Is it all right to exercise during the day of fasting, or does that become your rest day for the week?
That's a very nice question. The fact is, in the early days, for the first 2 or 3 months, many of us may want to rest. We may want to relax because we're starting to be feeling shaky at that point because it's new to us, it's changing our metabolism, etc. After that, it's an excellent day to fast. I lift weights on Wednesdays and I fast every week on Wednesday. And frankly, I find myself being able to lift equal or more weights on that day than I do on days I'm not fasting because my energies are not going into that. But it takes time for a person to get rid of the load of waste, to get emotionally clear and confident in fasting. And once you get to that place, it's perfectly fine. Matter of fact, some of the great Olympic athletes that win gold medals, etc., one of the ways that I've helped and the Institute has helped to prepare them and they've helped themselves is through fasting just before a meet. I know that when I go out and I address groups around the world, one of the things I never do is eat at that time because my food isn't digested. You know, because all the energy is up here. It's not down in my digestive tract. So there are little things that you're going to find become much more comfortable, and it's a great way for you to live in a better lifestyle when you can use this as a tool, fasting. Yes, one more question on fasting? Yes.
This isn't really directly on fasting, but it's like the connection of eating and the mind-body connection. I've modified my diet and been watching a fair amount, and I know that just the modification of the way that I eat sends a message to my brain 3 times a day or 4 times a day that I want to stay well, so I'm eating like this. And there's a neurological immunological process going on.
Psychoneuroimmunology.
PNI is happening. And I know part of the wellness that's being created is by virtue of the mind-body connection. And I know there's some physiological. Can you just comment on how that connects?
This is an important thing. Acts of goodness to self profoundly impact the self-esteem of an individual. When one raises their self-esteem, it's amazing what happens to the immune system. Now, here at the Institute, for well over a decade, we've practiced psychoneuroimmunology. It's exactly what you're talking about, where we not only theologically talk about the body and mind being connected, we show you how positive thought and controlling positive thought, like the act of eating good food, the act of fasting one day, the act of cleansing the body, the act of being positive to other individuals, the act of being gracious, the act of having integrity, will in fact increase T cell, H cell, fighter cells, killer cells in the body, and there's no doubt about this. There's no scientist who has looked at this who doubts this anymore. We also know how neurologically, again going back to that, it stabilizes the neurological patterns and actually creates a chain reaction of electrons down the neurological system, allowing all your reactions, be it psychological, physical, and I'll go one step further, hormonal, which can be partly spiritual, regulate and strengthen in the human person. It's an amazing thing to watch how this all works together. So yes, the act of goodness to self is always going to create goodness in self. That's it. Thank you.
Hippocrates is a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization. Our lifelong mission is to educate people on how to live a healthy lifestyle. Whether you are an alumnus watching this program for a review or seeing our work for the first time via these programs, we hope you will learn, grow, heal, and live to your highest potential. If we can assist you to do so, it is our honor, our privilege, and the reason we are here.